website, which was the original format of Yordle from the beginning, and we had a problem where items were really like just hanging there, and they weren't moving. So when you came back again and again, there wasn't necessarily anything new to look at. I have a really mean term for it, but I called it like Pinterest for hoarders. It was just like all this stuff up there, and it didn't inspire demand. It didn't inspire motivation to be like, I want that thing, I'm gonna go get it. And what's interesting about mobile is like you have this, it's like you're looking through a straw, and there could be an enormous database of things in there, but like your view is the straw, so it's like you're just seeing sort of what's in front of you over and over, and depending on your ability to surface relevant things for people, it can be really interesting and even kind of like addictive. I think people, our top users are in there just like constantly because they never want to miss like what the newest thing is going to be. We're getting requests for like a Yordleholics Anonymous like Facebook group for spouses that are angry that their spouse is like in the phone constantly like looking for the next free thing that's coming up. But so yeah, for us it was just game changing in terms of inspiring action more quickly, and giving people a reason to come back again and again. That the web, we're actually building out our website right now, and the big challenge is like how do we match the desire and the motivation and the interaction model that we've been able to achieve on mobile and translate that to web, and it's going to be a really hard project.
And I think something that sounds similar is it sounds like that experience, like our experience, a big driver is that it's fun for people, which is not really the case with most e-commerce. People don't think about it as a fun thing, but people think about their phones as a fun device. And if you look at the top apps in the App Store, they're almost all games. They're dominated by games. So any sort of commerce experience, we think, is going to end up looking a little bit more like a game than it does on the web. Yeah. And so that sounds like the kind of experience people are having there, where they're going to their phone to do something fun. You don't want to go to your phone just for a utility-like experience.
Yeah, so Chictopia, we started off as a website. So our web actually has a longer engagement time than our mobile, which is around 3 minutes or so. But I also think that it's not, for me personally, I'm not sure that it's indicative of the opportunity in the mobile space. I think it's just that we haven't optimized well enough. That it could be 22 minutes like Poshmark, but it's just not there yet.
Yeah, and I will say that the web has been the biggest demanded thing from our members, in addition to Android. Because there are definitely people that are like, when I go to Craigslist, I like to browse everything on like a nice big screen. I want to see everything. Like, where is the everything? And like, there just is not an everything on mobile, really.
Yeah, it's different. So, maybe that's a good segue into the other sort of half of the opportunity, which is what's making mobile uniquely difficult. Like, we could talk about a number of things, but I'm curious about transaction flows. I'm curious about conversion rates. I'm curious about customer acquisition, which used to be very much search dominated on the web. I'm like, what sort of problems and successes are you seeing there? Anyone want to start, Alan?
Sure. I think one thing about mobile that's been challenging for us is really just optimizing for the different type of browsers out there, and also in the Android market, different type of screen sizes, the user experience. And on the iPhone, the upgrading of the different OS and matching the branding for that. So with because every user experience is different, what we need to do to look at how we look at analytics should be different, and it's just more time and resources needs to be dedicated into optimizing each user experience funnel. I think resources would be the most challenging.
And so you're on Android and iOS.
Yes,
and
we are.
When you say the difficulty is the sort of heterogeneous environments with screen sizes and devices, is that difficult to design for, difficult to build for, difficult to test for? All of those things?
All of those things.
Yeah.
I think when we set out to release our Android app, we decided that we were going to support 5 or 6 screen sizes, and I believe that's not even all the screen sizes out there. Chictopia is also an international community. Half of our community is international. So you could look at the U.S. market, but then there's the international market where people are on various screen sizes. So to design for those sizes, to care for exceptions, and every test case has to be run 6 times. Just a lot of resources.
So do you have separate tablet apps as well?
We do not.
Okay, so just phone apps?
Just phone, mobile apps,
okay.
yeah.
Interesting. How about you guys? Separate tablet app?
No, we have a single app.
Single app.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different experience on iPad versus iPhone, very different experience, but on Google, on Android, it's similar across tablet and Android. But I guess one of the biggest challenges that we'd say is it's just really the maturity of the platform, I think. So whereas on web, it's very easy to attribute every customer and every click to where it came from. On mobile, that's a huge challenge for us. And when you're a business, it's very commerce driven, very lifetime value driven. We need to know what the value of every customer is across every channel, and there's a lot of guesswork, a ton of guesswork to try to figure out where that user came from and what they're worth. And that's something that I hope won't be the case in a few years, but it's definitely the case right now.
So I'd be willing to bet there's a bunch of people in the room who are trying to solve that already.
Yeah, definitely second that problem, absolutely. From a user acquisition perspective, for being, primarily, on mobile and iOS only product and sort of nascently building out the web, I'm basically going after like the most expensive customer out there. It's like people with iOS 7 on an iPhone 5S Gold. And so they're just an expensive person to get in front of. And yeah, I agree with all of the elements of, the reason why we're delaying an Android app, despite it being like the number one thing our customers want, is that it takes, 2 Android developers for every iOS developer. Like the ecosystem is so fragmented. It's gonna, if our feature set isn't complete yet, if you're operating on 3 platforms, every time you want to test a new feature or introduce something, you're now going to be reiterating that across all the platforms. If it doesn't work, you're pulling it back. It gets incredibly messy, and you could churn through a lot of your resources early. We're a pretty young company. We raised our Series A in April, so we don't want to, waste too much time before we're really ready to be available on all platforms. So it's definitely a push and pull we're always trying to battle.
So I think probably everyone in the room knows how different the mobile tech stack is from the one that existed for so long on the web. Are there sort of tools, third parties, tips, tricks? Like, what are you using to do to build your app? Your I don't know, payment, SDKs, tracking, measurement, those sorts of things.
Sure. So I think a lot of that stuff is evolving very quickly. So I'll talk specifically about the payment stuff because that's where we spend a ton of time, because we're a two-sided marketplace with real transactions. So we have to onboard sellers and figure out how to get those sellers paid. We also have to onboard buyers and obviously let those buyers pay really quickly. And I'd say when we started 2 years ago, the experience was really kludgy and very disconnected in terms of, you look at the APIs that were out there, even using sort of PayPal's API to then send someone to a web form, and the conversion rates on payment were pretty challenging. But that's changed, I think, even in the last 6 months pretty dramatically. So now we're able to have really quick one-tap payment with Braintree or with PayPal. And those APIs, I think, are actually better than the experience of paying for a product on the web sometimes. So I think because so many companies are trying to innovate in this space and trying to build new stuff, that's actually an area in which mobile is a little bit ahead. We actually don't see that much friction on payment today, and that's made a big difference.
So in your mind, that sort of problem is getting solved?
Is getting solved. I mean, there still is a lot of disparate stuff out there. So there still is a lot of back end work that you need to do. It's not as turnkey as we'd like it to be, but I'd say it's actually much better than a lot of web experiences out there in terms of payments.
And is your traffic generally U.S.?
Our traffic is almost entirely U.S. and some Canada.
Have you looked at any international payment stuff?
We haven't yet because we're a North American experience today, but we expect next year to do international stuff. So I probably would have a different story then.
I'm sure they're trying to solve it.
Yeah.
I like that. We're a North American experience. TM. Ding. We're a U.S. experience. TM.
You don't have payments.
No, we do because people need to pay for shipping, and so we definitely have a number of different systems kind of linked together that make the Yrdle flow work. So when you go to pay for shipping, we'll send you to Amazon Payments, and you make the shipping payment with your Amazon account, which most people have their address and their payment already loaded up in there, and it works pretty well. We use EasyPost to integrate with FedEx, which is our shipping partner. Which works pretty well. Once in a while we have problems with their API, and we recently rolled out a new sort of UI update that is designed to really ensure that when you win an item on Yrdle, like it's going to get to you, or the item's going to get the transaction will get canceled and you'll get your credits refunded and get your shipping refunded, just to make sure people are really getting the thing out the door. And so if Easy Post breaks and FedEx doesn't update, even though you shipped your item, we don't know it, so we're canceling your transaction, and there's fun things like that going on. So, your partners are really critical to building a successful service, and I think, once you get bigger, you can build everything yourself and really own it and maintain it, but you have to rely on different folks as you grow. We use Keen to record our event data in our app. Yeah.
So I think my experience with PayPal was more challenging, I think, because we started developing our app maybe 2 years ago. So we found that the documentation was not very complete. And after we had developed PayPal for the web, the mobile was a completely different story. So I thought that took a lot of back and forth. Sheetopia also is an international community. So in terms of payment, some of our sellers accept Alipay, which is a documentation that I'm not sure many of us can read or implement very easily. So in that space, I think it's still fragmented if you're trying to do an international marketplace. So that was our experience.
And how about for tracking, measurement, insights, analytics on your app? What do you use there?
Yeah, so we started using Flurry, but we switched to Google Analytics, which was very helpful in kind of tracking the purchasing funnel, where people land on the next stage, and how do people get to the buy button.
And using that web or mobile?
For
or both?
mobile and web. For mobile specifically, we recently started wanting to track user stories from end to end, a single user. So we started looking at Mixpanel, which ended up being quite expensive. So we ended up building our own in-house tracking. One challenge also with an outside tracking is it's only as good as your code base and how much you track internally. So might as well just build your own. That was our thought. Yeah.
We use Mixpanel, and again, I think the data is good. Again, the biggest problem is attribution, which is just across the board a difficult issue for us. But one actually tool that we use a lot, and I guess this isn't really mobile specific, but we never used it on any of our web products, but we've been using user testing a lot with mobile, and we find that the insights are just phenomenally better than any analytics you could do in terms of seeing real people actually interacting with and using your app and making decisions based on that. So we do quite a bit of that. For anyone building apps out there, I definitely recommend spending a few $100s on a couple of users to test stuff through user testing.
Yeah, we do the same thing. Definitely recommend it. We also use Mixpanel. We do a combination of home-built stuff, Mixpanel. It's such a difficult challenge to figure out what you should be measuring, how often, how frequently, different ways to slice and dice the data and make sure you're recording it. And you can end up purchasing a third-party service, but if you don't integrate completely and also train every member of your team on how to assess that data, it's not really going to go anywhere or do anything. So it's a fun challenge.
So we talked about how difficult it is to design for so many different devices. How do you do testing and iteration? How do you try two different things and see what works?
Well, I know it's a lot easier for us to do that, to do testing on Android than on iPhone, than on iOS, just generally speaking. We have to do a lot of homegrown stuff on iOS to be able to build the ability to change things on the back end, whereas Android, you can easily release an app to a certain percentage of the community, which is really helpful. So that is definitely easier to test and iterate very quickly on Android. But we're very quick at TopHatter to throw out new features and try to get them tested. So our sort of philosophy has been to often make mistakes and then roll things back, which is really challenging in the iPhone environment in particular because there's a 7-day lead time at least to get a new app out there. And so we release once a week, and you may have a week of a really bad build out there that's painful. So that's caused us to do most of our testing on the web or on Android, and then what we know works, put it into iPhone, which is not the best sort of method.
Yeah. We use TestFlight to release a different version of our app to a group of people, our staff and beta users, and have a different staging server for that, which works pretty well. And we listen really closely to our community. We have a really passionate group of folks that We call them pro givers. They give like 100 items a week or more on Yurtle. And we made a private Facebook group for them, and all day long they're talking in there. They find all of our bugs. They give us all the product feature feedback that we could want, without us having to ask them for it. They hack Google Docs together to build things that we're not building for them yet. So that's also an incredibly useful. If you have the luxury of having an active community, giving them a space to talk and really seeing what they're talking about can be some of your best feedback. The one caveat is, your average user is not going to be the person posting 100 things a week and schlepping 100 boxes to FedEx. That person is very strange, but that's why they're in like the 0.001% of your user base. So you also have to remember to pay attention not just to your aggro super users, but to sort of remember to go use user testing and see what just like an average person thinks of something.
So for us, we do a little bit of in-house testing with core use cases, and then we release to the App Store and to see how it goes. For us, it's a little bit different because our website has more capability than our mobile app. So what happens is if there's a bug on the mobile app, people just go to the website. And like Rachel, we also rely on our community to tell us and just send us an email or shoot us a feedback on something not working on the web or the mobile.
Great. Okay, so why don't we talk a little bit about customer acquisition on mobile? What are you doing to find new customers, and how do you know whether that stuff is working or not? And I'm prepared to dodge any
I
questions.
use this
having to do
website
with
that a company Rob works for called Facebook. They have a really great mobile app install ad platform. And the reason why we use it is that, so number one, my working definition of Facebook is where people are on the internet. So it's just a huge swath of individuals, and they're sort of naturally going about their day as they would, and it's like a great place to get in front of them. You can be pretty certain that they're going to be real people, high quality people that are likely to actually use your service. And Facebook has really developed some really advanced targeting and methods to sort of refine who you're exactly reaching out to and knowing that with a high degree of certainty. And as of late, it's also pretty much the best cost for the quality of user that you're getting. If you want to go get 50,000 downloads in a weekend through an Incent campaign, and they all turn out to be bots or people from Czechoslovakia, you can do that, but they're not going to turn out to be users of your service. Your app, ranking will rise, for a while, and then it's going to go back down because they'll end up deleting it. And so, Facebook is kind of where you go to for high quality, real people that actually are going to use your service over time. I was just chiding Rob though. It's definitely a love-hate relationship with the advertising platform. There's just a lot of volatility, and the volatility can come from the volume of people that are buying at any given time and the demand for ad space. It can come because they're rolling out a new way that their algorithm works, or they literally change the admin view of how you make the ads every 2 weeks. It just looks different, or there's new features there, which is cool. They're building and they're pushing a lot, but it's something where you've really got to be on your toes constantly and just learning. And I think SEO on the web has not caught up to how fast they change it. So there's no way to Google the answer to what is this new thing that they put out there, because it's on page 100 in Google because it's 2 days old. So that's a challenge. And I think just we were talking about it too. It's demand is increasing, so costs are going up. We used to be able to get downloads at this incredible price we were so happy with, and it was we'll do this all day, all day. And now can't get it anymore. It's sad, and it's what are we going to do? So that's really why you have to diversify your user acquisition sort of mix. That being said, there's just not as many robust channels, specifically in mobile, specifically for iOS, for high quality iOS people. So
Are there others that you've tried that you feel good about?
You're my only one, Rob. You're all I got. Help me, Rob.
Take questions on
Yeah, but other ones we're looking at. So obviously Twitter just launched their mobile app install platform. It's only in beta, so you have to request to get into it. You could do on-site advertising for other highly used apps. You could display on Pandora or Spotify or other apps like that. There's referral networks and sort of ad networks on mobile specifically, the mobile web, Incent campaigns like I talked about. So there's definitely a wide variety of tactics, but nobody can get me a media plan that offers the prices that Facebook can get me. So.
And do you see activity on the mobile web? Is almost everything app to app?
So we were iOS only through January, but even in that, every single item on Yurtle had a web URL, so you could tweet that item, you could share it on Facebook, you could email it to someone, you could text it to someone, and it lived on the mobile web. So we have had a mobile web presence, and sort of now we're sort of saying like, okay, we're sort of backwards building, the full web experience when our items have technically had like lifespans on the web previously.
How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, probably I'd second a lot of that. That we pretty much try every channel we can think of on mobile. And we have some success in other channels. We've had some success on Pandora, for example. We're doing the Twitter stuff now, but by far and away, Facebook works better for us than anything else. It always has. And we attribute that partly to Facebook's dominance on the mobile platform, but also partly to our experience is a sort of game-like experience that people, doing Google ad search for, searching for a particular item on Google isn't going to drive you to download an app to play our experience and then buy something. So we may be in a unique spot there, but we're very heavily dependent on Facebook, and it works really well for us, but it is volatile. And so we're looking all the time at new channels.
Yeah, that's a really good point about intent, that like, who's looking for a free Beats by Dre headphones? It's like, you would never, it's like, that's a scam site, right? Like, there's no free Beats by Dre headphones. Well, like, sometimes there are on Yurtle, but like, no one's searching for that. So how do you put that in front of someone and show them, no, like, if you come here, this is here.
Yeah.
It really is free.
The one thing we've gotten good at understanding, though, is also how Facebook is very volatile. We've gotten better at understanding when it's going to spike up and when it's not. So we know, for example, the last 2 weeks of every fiscal quarter, we want to dial back our spend because every marketing head of big, companies are looking to spike their usage numbers right before the end of the quarter.
That's true.
And CPIs will go, I don't know why it keeps on shutting off, I've tried to fix it. CPIs will go, double overnight. So we try to take advantage of that where we can.
Tell me more secrets.
It's very true. That is a
so good.
True secret. That's true.
So we're just now in that period right now at the end of June, and 2 weeks from now.
That's why it's been going crazy. Fuck! You gotta give me a heads up.
So are both of you guys using Facebook directly on your own, or using third parties to help you with your buying and measurement, et cetera?
We do it. We've tried both, but we do it primarily by ourselves.
I make the creative. I build the lookalike audiences.
Awesome.
To give it perspective, we're spending, over $10,000 a day on Facebook trying to drive these installs. So it's a core part of what we do as a business, and really is crucial to the company.
How about you, Helen?
So I think my experience is pretty different because we don't really buy traffic for our app. We started with the destination website with over 1 million uniques monthly. So our mobile install is mainly driven by brand. People know us, and when they started buying smartphones, they search for us in the App Store and they download. I'm sorry? Oh, is this better? Yeah. So what I said was people knew our brand and they download us. And we didn't really spend money buying app downloads. I was telling Rob that I did spend a few $1,000s with Tapjoy at one point. And I think they monetize by putting banners for your app amongst a lot of games, and we found that wasn't very relevant to our traffic. That was the end of our buying at that point. We basically mainly rely on building up a brand amongst our community and trying to get a higher user satisfaction score for our product and trying to get referral users to come in.
And do you still have a big web presence?
We do, yeah.
And is that traffic coming via search?
It's a combination of search and referral traffic from the various social networks, Facebook being one of them, but also very volatile in traffic in terms of...
I just work on ads.
Yeah, and we're really talking about the leap from this, to this, and like there isn't a direct cord or a line drawing from someone, and a lot of the tactics that you could use to drive users on the web, and PR hit or whatever, that's not necessarily gonna directly, you can't like force someone to pull out their phone and go to the app store and download your app like there. So it's like, how do you kind of shorten that like gap as much as possible? And like we had it's a great idea to put like text me the link to the app on your website so that you can just enable someone who is on the web to do something they would normally be doing, type, but then get that message sent to their phone so they can download it.
So the relationship, how important is the relationship that you guys have with the platform sort of providers, the Apple and Google? Have you ever gotten featured in the App Store? How was that process for you? How are you feeling about the way the stores work? Just talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, we got featured in around Earth Day, which was really great. So we were like the 4th app. We didn't quite get the exact like home page, but if you're on mobile, if you scrolled over by 1, we were there. And we definitely saw probably a 2.5x increase in our downloads around that time. I think we're up there for about 6 days. We have done, so like App Store optimization is the thing. How many people know about that? Optimizing the keywords in your app description to rise your rank in the App Store. So Adam and I got on a call with this kid in Bangladesh. He was like 16, and he like, we paid him like $50, and he told us everything about how to do this. But essentially, you want to be utilizing the keywords in your description, which actually is relatively short in the Apple iStore, but the title like character length they give you is like absurdly long. So I will see if I can recite our actual legit App Store name, that like is the name of our app in the App Store, which is like purely for keyword purposes.
Can't wait.
Yurtle, free online shopping, give stuff, get things you don't need in your local community, furniture, kids' toys, clothing, gadgets, recycling saves money, saves the planet, saves the earth, something like that. Like,
wow.
That's actually how long our app name is, and it looks horrible. Like, every time I render one of my ads in the ad creator in Facebook, I'm just like, oh God, like I see our whole name there, it's awful. But I think we're like, last time I checked, we were ranked 200 in like lifestyle apps in the App Store, which is like, doesn't really matter till you get maybe above 30, but you basically can get a drip of organic downloads every day if you have your name and description optimized. So
Question in the back on that.
yeah.
I think the most approach you guys mentioned traditional e-commerce customer acquisition approach. My question is, what kind of for social mobile e-commerce the top keyword is now? So what kind of full real-time technology you have?
You want to just repeat the question?
I'm not sure I can repeat that question. So,
What kind of real-time technology? It's like, social mobile e-commerce is all about real-time bidding or real-time matching.
I see. So you,
What kind of real-time
yeah.
technology you have?
So okay, let me make sure I understand the question. So you're asking a question about the way the apps actually function here, or are you asking a question about acquiring users?
I'm asking for those three startups, what kind
Yeah, inside the
of
app.
technology they have now?
Yeah,
It's called core technology, right? Otherwise, how can you survive?
yeah. So I think the point is, hey, mobile is all about real time and things moving faster. The web wasn't that way. So is there any key underlying enabling technology that's letting your apps do things faster, or let people do things faster with each other?
Sure. I mean, well, for us, it's maybe more obvious than for other apps in that we are this synchronous real-time environment. So we spend a lot of time on the technology side ensuring that we can handle the connections that users have in the room with each other and with the item in a synchronous way. So we've got, integrations with PubNub, I think, is our major technology provider that we use to send messaging in real time so that we're constantly providing a good experience. But in terms of the user acquisition side, that's also a big focus for us. If we can find a way to acquire users in real time the same way we remarket to users in real time, that would make the business really effective over time. Right now, we use traditional sort of methods for acquiring those users and then have a very real-time experience over their lifetime. Oh, that's good.
This is my tiny microphone.
It works with a big sound.
Yeah.
How about just before we open it up to questions, which we're going to do in just 1 second, I'm just kind of curious about the same question on the Google side, the Android store.
No comment.
Same question.
Yeah, has the store featured you? Has your relationship with the store been helpful to your ability to get discovered or used, or has it been frustrating in any way?
We've been featured a few times by Apple, and it's made a little bit of a difference, but not a huge difference.
That's all right.
We have not yet been featured by Google, but actually no, I take that back. We were featured in a sort of email marketing campaign one time, and we actually saw a bigger impact from that feature than any of our Apple features that we've ever had. But that was a one-off blip.
And I mean, broadly speaking, do you feel like the mobile OS, those pieces of the ecosystem that you have to interact with, for your app, that they're like developed and there for you, or you're still waiting for key pieces of foundational infrastructure to appear? Like, are you in a position for success vis-a-vis the OS?
It's a good question. I think the answer to that is that yes, we are, but it's a shifting landscape, and that's challenging because priorities change all the time. So a good example for us on the featured front, so this is maybe really specific, but we were featured by Apple for a very long time in the App Store in our category, and our app, I don't know if you had a chance to see the screenshots or play with it, it's a very sort of real world looking app. And when Apple changed their mind and didn't want their experience to be real world anymore, they wanted it to be a flatter experience, that was a criteria where they wouldn't feature us anymore. So it's like their priorities, they would want their priorities to then be picked up by developers who may want to go in a different direction. And they were really clear about that, which I found kind of challenging. But in general, in terms of features and functionality, I think that mobile is developing just so much quicker than web did, and we're seeing new stuff come all the time that our limiting factor is our own ability to develop, not the platforms.
Yeah. One interesting thing about our relationship with Apple, we released our app, and then like 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later, iOS 7 came out, and we're like, oh God, like our app is ugly now, like to Apple, like we're not iOS 7 compliant. And so we had to switch and just do a quick like UI update because like our fonts were too fat. So Apple really sort of leads from a design perspective. Culturally, they try to really, the whole walled garden approach, it's like, it's very curated. So if you want to play in Apple's garden, you have to be Apple-y.
Yeah. What you?
We recently was just told that we are getting featured, but we haven't yet, so we submitted our paperwork, or our artwork. So I've yet to tell that story of what it's like to be featured. But I did notice that we got notice, our app's been on the App Store for about 2 years now. We did notice that we got the confirmation after we upgraded our app to iOS 7 look and feel. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
Okay, great. So I think we're at about 8 o'clock. So why don't we open it up for questions? You want to pass the mic around? Yeah.
Okay. So thanks for opening up a whole floodgate of questions, but I'll try and stick with two if I can. So Yurdle, you talked about using the Facebook platform for your prospecting purposes, and knowing that Facebook, obviously mines a whole lot of information and knows, it has a gold mine of behavioral information. Have they been able to carve out a market of hoarders for you right from within the user base?
Rob, where are the hoarders? That's
Hoarders,
yeah. Facebook has a great feature that Rob walked me through this past February before I knew really anything about how to advertise effectively on their platform. And it's just building lookalike audiences based on your existing members, and you can pick a slice of your members who are like the most active, your best members. And for us, you sign up for Yurdle by integrating either through Facebook or Google+. So we actually have the Facebook IDs for like 60% of our members. So of those folks, we could take our most active people, give those Facebook IDs to Facebook. They, in 24 hours, turn around with like a 2 million person audience based on those people, and it's way more precisely targeted and based on way more factors than if I was going into the app, the ad creator saying, I want women who live in this area who have these interests, and I was hand building every single one. I really get that the downside of that system is like it's a complete black box. Like I actually have no idea who I'm advertising to. So from a creative development perspective, I have to go off of what I think the existing Yurdle community would find interesting and attractive. I watch the way our member demographics change over time. I'm like, oh, I think I'm largely being shown to women. I think it's women between 18 and 40. Like that's the larger percentage of people that are coming into Yurdle new. But to be honest, I mean, what I feel grateful for is that as a service, Yerdle has really strong sort of word of mouth and kind of like shareability. Like people, when you get something free from a place, like you're pretty likely to tell other people about it. If you get hooked in and you love credits, you start sharing, using your referral URL and sharing people. So we basically have a paradigm in user acquisition over here that's like, we want to minimize direct buying to like as small as possible percentage of the overall pie of how we're growing Yerdle. It's still really important to have it active, in my opinion, because it is one of those dials that you can turn up or turn down with whatever degree of variability on cost, but it's a much more highly controlled dial than, you know, the spiky things that come from partnerships or PR or things like that. So ultimately, we'd love to grow Yerdle primarily from members referring other members, from sort of engineered growth approaches into the product itself. I think the product itself being kind of sticky and novel is like the best, you know, asset we have in our court on that front. But yeah, still super useful.
And I had a follow-on for Chictopia. Did I get that right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned you guys focus on the top of the funnel, right?
Yes, that's correct.
What kind of relationships are you guys, I mean, looking ahead, what kind of relationships are you guys planning to set up with, say, fashion brands that would allow you to get to the, you know, all the way through the conversion part as well and get you credit for getting guys into the funnel, number one. And doing that, of course, gets you into competition with Facebook too, which is going ahead with a lot of relationship building with brands right now to give them, you know, access to a private exchange kind of advertising environment. So how do you see this relationship playing out going forward in terms of, you know, the fashion brands?
Yes, just so in terms of, could you, just so I understand your question, could you elaborate on what do you mean by getting credit with fashion brands?
Well, if you're getting prospects into the funnel, and you talked about attribution, that's what I'm getting at.
I see.
So, I mean, instead of just getting paid for CPMs and stuff, you get a lot more credit if you get them through the conversion process. And the only way you can do that is if you have relationship with brands, which are willing to give you credit for it.
What do you mean by a lot more credit?